Welcome to Parenthood Bites, the podcast where we explore life as a parent in tech. I'm your host, Chow, and I have over 15 years of experience in tech, and I'm also currently working as a career coach. I'm the proud mother of 3 incredible boys. In each episode, we have an inspiring guest who will share their remarkable story. You'll find their wisdom and insights both relatable and enriching, because after all, we're all in this parenting journey together. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 37 of Parenthood Bites. We're here today with Rahul Deshmukh, who is a veteran SaaS marketing executive in the Bay Area. Hi Rahul, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's Friday. I can't complain.
Yeah, do you have any weekend plans?
No, I just took a nice trip to Yosemite during the weekdays, so I'm just kind of recouping from that trip. It was a dad and a son trip, which was nice. I did beat the crowds in Yosemite, which is good, and it was a fantastic trip. So weekends is just kind of recovering from that trip and spending time with the family.
That's so awesome. When you go to Yosemite, do you rent a cabin or do you do tents?
No, we this time we were a last minute folk, so it was just a day trip. So start in the morning, come back in the night.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
really awesome. That's very spontaneous.
Yeah, it's a spontaneous trip. We said, you know what, we don't have much to do tomorrow. Why don't we just sit in the car and drive?
That's so cool. Your son must have loved that.
Yeah, he likes outdoor nature and so forth. So it was fun. It was fun.
That's nice. It's nice when they like going out, then it's easier to pull them away from their devices.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you plan and plan and plan. In this case, you just show up. I think that's a lot better.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, that leads me to my first question of how many kids do you have and what are their ages?
Yeah, I have two kids. I have a son who is 20, and I have a daughter who is 16. So they are, kind of entering adulthood and teenage years and so forth. So a lot of things we are learning, a lot of things they are learning. So yeah, it's kind of a new phase and a new journey in our lives and their lives as well.
Yeah, I bet. So one is in college and one is in high school?
Yeah, we took a community college to a transfer route for my son, and one is in a high school, and she'll be a senior next year. So it's busy times. It's busy times.
Yeah. So they're both still at home right now?
They are still at home, and both of them will be with us for a long time because my son is going to go locally to a 4-year college in town. So if he wants to stay at home,
Yeah, that's great.
it's fantastic because we can see him every day and then can support him and as well as saves me a lot of money in housing.
How did you convince him to stay home? What was your secret?
Honestly, so my son is neurodiverse, so he prefers to be at home and to be supported by parents and other things. And I think nowadays kids are getting a little bit lazy when it comes to going and staying on their own and managing everything. Here you have parents managing everything for you, so that's part of the secret. My daughter is the opposite. She does not want to stay at home. She wants to kind of go, for sure, go and stay in the dorms and do everything. But she's fairly independent and she has her own ideas on what she wants to do. So a little bit different thing than what we have with my son. But they are different individuals and you have to kind of respect their choices.
Yeah, that's why you have more kids, right? At least one of them will want to stick around.
Yes,
The chances are higher.
chances are much higher. Yes, yes, yes. That's
That's what
true.
I tell myself. I'm like, okay, I got 3 of them. I just need one, just one.
Yeah.
So, so what brought you to tech?
So it's a very interesting question. My education is chemical engineering. I have a bachelor's and a master's in chemical engineering. And as I was kind of finishing up my master's, halfway through my master's, I realized that to be successful in chemical engineering, you have to be very passionate, and you need to do a PhD. You need to kind of be a research person, or you can go another route, which is work in some sort of a a job where you will be repeating the same things to a certain extent. I like doing new things, new challenges every single month or every few quarters and so forth. And that's what, I started taking some classes when I was in grad school, and that kind of brought me to tech. One of the things I realized is I was not the best at doing, object oriented programming, but I was very good at doing database programming. So I ended up into, the database world, and so forth. And that's what brought me to tech. And I've stayed in tech, enjoyed every minute of it for the last, 25 plus years that I have worked. And I've done a variety of things. I started as a developer, did analytics. That's where you and I kind of crossed paths, and then kind of moved to product marketing, technical set of products, complex products, doing business analytics products, to networking, network security, to security analytics. Tech changes every day nowadays. If you if you were to think, now we could say tech changes every month. Now it changes every day. There are new set of things and so forth. I think I'm always been hungry to learn new things and to kind of keep up. So there is never a dull moment in tech, and that's what I like.
Yeah, always something going on every time you check your phone, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something.
There's something, some new advancements, some new, kind of ways of doing things, and enabling, certain things. So that's always exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how many years were you in tech when you became a parent?
So I was in tech for almost, I would say, good 5 years in tech before I became a parent. And part of that, journey being in tech before becoming a parent was just getting a kind of firm footing in the ground, right? For me, my story was, like a lot of folks, immigrant coming here, going to grad school, settling a little bit, learning things before, you start the family. And by the time our first son was born, I was in tech. I knew what I was doing. I think that was most important. There was stability and so forth. And my wife was also graduating from her grad school program. So timing was perfect. One person, kind of, in the thing, and then she was kind of graduating and she had something lined up. So that's where we said, I think it's time to start a family. And that's where we had our first child, and then we waited for 3 years and had our second child.
That makes a lot of sense. I think like a lot of people want to like settle first and then kind of think about, because you already have so much to worry about, right? Especially coming to a different country, you have so many things that you have to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, and, times have changed. When I say times have changed, when I came to the States, there was not much of an understanding of, what to do, because the internet was just coming alive. Today, if I was to move today, it would be a lot easier because you have a lot of global exposure through, internet, through social media, through, TV shows and so forth. But there's a much more, kind of appreciation of everything, the newness of everything when you walk in. It was very different than what you could find. It could be anything from language to culture to food to places to everything else.
Yeah, I mean, even figuring out the time zone is so much easier now.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
my dad came to the States for grad school, and we would all gather around. I was really little to call him, and we thought we would call him in the morning, and we would always get him like in the middle of the night because now you can just check your phone. Back then, we would like try to figure out the hours, and does that work?
Yeah,
Maybe no. We always got it wrong. He was always happy to hear from us, but
yeah,
so
yeah.
tired.
It was like hours, and yeah, and yeah. So today's world is very, very different, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, when you had your son, you were 5 years in. What was the parental leave like at work?
As in Texas, this was very different. There was no parental leave. There was no parental leave policy per se. You take time off just the way you want it. There was maternity leave, but no parental leave for the dad of the house. So the way we kind of planned and did everything was around, my son was born around the holidays, a few days right after Christmas, so we could have some extra days. And I used to work for a company that used to have a shutdown during that time, and that shutdown stayed till like January first week. So took advantage of that. And then we had some way we could accrue some leave, so I took advantage of that. And that kind of helped transition and adjust to the new thing. I wish there was at least 4 week parental leave at the minimum, both. And of course maternity leave, you need longer than that, but paternity leave, I think at least 4 weeks at the minimum would have been super helpful. That was not the case. I think we came back from the hospital. We had this, break, which was there till first week of January, and then I took another week off, and then back into. But in that case, it was more everybody, worked in a certain way where managers, if you have a good manager, they would work with you. And hey, I know you're going to see sleep deprived, so I can understand you pouring extra cups of coffee, or I had the flexibility of, like, coming in a little bit later or leaving a little bit later, and so forth, or going for doctor's appointments and so forth.
That's good. That's good to have that understanding manager. So, with your second kid, your daughter, was it also the same?
Yeah, it was the same situation where there was no paternity leave. The thing which kind of helped us through tremendously was support from family. We had my parents come in, we had my wife's parents come in and take turns and help us out. And then you need a lot of emotional strength, you need other help as well. And they were there, and that helped us tremendously. And in fact, sometimes I feel paternity leave is super important, but getting that help is equally important, because even though you get the leave, sometimes if you don't have the support, it can be very daunting for the first child, for sure, because there is a lot of things that you're learning on the job. But even for the second one, you have a first child taken care of and other things. And we had family in town. My sister used to live in town, and she could take our older one, and the older one stayed with them for a few days, for at least 2 3 days, while we were just kind of focusing on the second one.
Just kind of moving things around, whatever works. And it's so good you had family around. That's so wonderful. So, then when the kids were a little older and stuff, was family still around to kind of help with childcare?
We started with the home care and then transitioning into a full-time daycare approach, and somehow we were just not ready to put our child into a daycare where there will be 3 or 4 other kids or 5 other kids. Putting a baby, I think we thought that, oh, it needs a little bit more, kind of extra care, and more, the ratio has to be a little bit lower. So we found some good certified home care, and that kind of helped us. The downside of it was, if somebody in that particular home care was sick, then the owner, it just became pretty much on us to kind of come and manage and so forth. But in general, it worked out pretty well for the first 6 months, and then we transitioned into a daycare.
Yeah, I think it's so important to find one that you trust, that you know will care about the kids, right? Because the
Yeah,
kids can't say anything, so you just have to trust them.
exactly. Yeah.
So, how has your work life changed since you became a parent?
Your priorities change. Your priorities change. Earlier, it's you focused more on your career. You focused on doing things at the whim, like, hey, I want to take a trip somewhere, and you and your spouse can take the trip. And that's what we were doing. Even at work, we had more time at work, and we could put in the hours and everything. The priorities change. I think in the first couple of years, I mean, you have multiple set of things that you have to do. One of them is making sure you show up on doctor's appointments, and just not, or in the first at least 3 to 4 months of each of our child, we both used to be there for the doctor's appointment. It's good to be there to support each other and so forth. And then later things can kind of taper off. I think that's one. I think the second thing is, there are a lot of kind of uncertainties that go on. You'll take it one day at a time, because you might have, oh yeah, we have a relaxing evening, and suddenly your child is sick, or a child is cranky in the night, and you have a late night, and so forth. What was very interesting, my work was pretty, I would say, pretty demanding at that point. And when I say demanding, I used to work as a database engineer, and we would do on calls, and I had to be on call for a week, and that could mean you get late night calls from work, and something is broken, something needs to be fixed, and then you also have a child, and so on. So we as a family, we had certain things that we would draw out and say, hey, this is a week I'm going to focus on this, and then next week I'm going to catch up on doing other things. And that's how, and my wife was also working. So I think it was prioritization, flexibility. When I say flexibility, is more being flexible with each other, and then also kind of making sure your coworkers and your team that you work with are aware of things around you, so that they can sometimes lean in. And I was fortunate to have amazing coworkers during that time who would help out in certain situations, like, hey, I know something is going on, and I was pretty transparent that I need help. And sometimes you just have to say, I need help, because people can't read your mind. People don't know what's going on. And they were pretty helpful and pretty supportive through that phase.
That's amazing. And you're absolutely right. When you don't ask for help, people think you're fine because you're not saying anything. So they just don't know.
Yeah.
More often than not, people want to help. And so I think it's a really key point that you mentioned there of like, you need to ask for help when you need it.
You need to ask for help. And that happens even today in your professional career, right? I mean, you may be overwhelmed with work, you might have a personal situation. Till you ask for help, you're not going to get the support. And you ask for help in the right fashion, and then people will respond in the right fashion. And you also help people out when they need help.
Definitely. So, what has been your biggest struggle or challenge being a parent in tech?
I think the biggest challenge we had was, I think the pandemic was not the easiest phase of everything, being stuck at home and everything that went with it. I think there's enough people who have said things. I think what was more challenging for us was right before the pandemic, we kind of discovered that our son was neurodiverse and was on the ASD spectrum. In person appointments, in person instructions, in person sort of interactions really helped build social bonds. And for my daughter was in middle school, my son was in high school, they missed out on all of that. And as a parent, when we could live with kind of Zoom calls and other things, for them taking the instructions, at least they were not elementary school, it would have been even worse, right? I think that was our biggest struggle point, was really how do we adjust, how do we support, and how do we kind of keep them motivated to do things. I would say what came out of it was, other than everything that everybody talks about, was an increased reliance on social media, increased reliance on, like, social media, just kind of more screen time on the phone than what it used to be earlier. And that has had long-term effects on folks, how they get influenced by things, how do they try to fit in, how do they try to project themselves, and the frustration sometimes that comes through, and so forth. I think that has been a struggle for a lot of folks, and especially that age is a very interesting age, when even kids in person try to fit in, even kids in person try to kind of be part of part of the society. And then now you are using social media to be part of that fabric. I think that, I feel, is not the best, because you're making friends with folks that you've probably not even met. You're also trying to project an image that you probably are not, and you're trying to emulate folks who are there just for to get more likes or views or whatever you want to call it. I think that is probably one of the biggest struggles in this part of the thing. I think now, when I reflect, when the kids were small, I would think, oh, that's life is so tough now, it will
Yeah.
get easier later.
Yeah.
I would say it's the opposite. Life was much easier when they were young and so forth than now when they are a little bit older, and so, because it's just not that. It's also academic pressures. It is not that we put pressure, but we want them to reach their potential, right?
And they put pressure on themselves too.
They do put pressure on themselves. And I think the Bay Area is kind of, I would say, has its pluses and minuses. I think if you look at a general population, it's a very high achieving population overall, because everybody came here for jobs and other things. And I think the pressure kind of trickles down on the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they really feel like they need to do a really good job because they see their peers too. And I see
Yeah.
my kids, they come home and they just go do their homework. Homework, 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 you know? Oh, it's time to play. No, we got to do homework.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it also depends on how, I mean, as parents, my wife and I, we were debating quite a bit, private school versus public school, and we chose the public school route. And in hindsight, maybe some sort of private school in some early stages of their life would have been helpful to bring a little bit more rigor and discipline than what a public school brought, at least in the elementary school.
So, you talked about some of the struggles evolving as kids get older. It sounds like when they're younger, it's just the basics, right? The basic concerns. As they
Yeah.
get older, it's a lot more. So, right now, at their current ages of 20 and 16, what do you struggle with the most?
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle we have is we still feel that they are kids and we want to kind of direct them like, hey, do this or don't do this. And I think we need to transition as parents. We need to grow up as parents and take the brakes, take the foot off the gas, and then say, what, why don't you do it? Why don't you be independent and be there just to support them? I think that's always a struggle, I would say. It's a transition and we are not sometimes willing to let go, and that's one big struggle. I think the other struggle is, I would say, how do we kind of make sure they make the right choices, right? Because this is the age of making choices are across a wide spectrum of things. How do we kind of make sure they are getting confident, they are experimenting on certain things, but not to a point where they just don't feel like they lose interest into a subject or they lose interest into a certain activity and so forth. So I think that's been one of the things which we struggle with, and we kind of want to be there, but we also want to kind of watch it from the sideline. And how do we strike that balance? And even the parenting styles can be different. My wife has a different style, I have a different style. I'm like, let them go and do things, and she's like, oh no, I think I need to be there for them and so forth.
It's a constant struggle, right?
That's a constant struggle. Yeah, and probably that's one thing. They also get frustrated if we jump in too much, and if we let them do things on their own, and then they fail. They're like, "Why you knew it? Why did you not tell me?" And then that's where things get a little bit tricky. And how do we build that level of confidence and trust, so that it's not like, oh, I'm not going to ask, or it has to be a situation where we can go back and still have fun in that case.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, and I think it changes as they get older. It just constantly changes as they evolve, right? As
Exactly.
adults and as we get older too.
Yes, that's true.
So, what do you do for work-life balance? What is your approach for that?
So I've been in now, in executive roles and other things. I think you have to carve time. There's no clear formula. You have to carve time for certain set of activities. I have been very fortunate to have managers who have supported that carving of time, and it could be as simple as, and it's just not you're carving time for the kids, but you have to kind of carve time for yourself too, because you have a lot of stress that comes from your role and other things. A couple of things that I have found super helpful, at least for me, is one is, you need to carve time to go do some sort of a physical activity, and that could be you're going out for a walk. And I do that every day. I go out for a walk, and everybody has a different thing. My wife always is on the phone when she goes on a walk. I like to be, just, I don't want to be on the phone. I just want to go on a walk, listen to all the sounds that are there, right? I don't like working out in a gym. I don't like being on a treadmill at home. I like just the outdoors. Just get out of the home, get the fresh air and walk. I think the other thing is carving out time to meditate. I meditate every morning, meditate every evening, and it's that 10 minutes that you just need to carve out. And even like now in this world that we are living in and doing a lot of more type of work, you can be on and in front of the computer for a longer period of time than what you used to. I carve out time. I block time, saying, 10 minutes of me time here. I'm just going to sit and sometimes, not look at a screen, just walk around the home. It could be just sit on the chair and reflect on, project or something I've done, or just, kind of be by myself. I think that's very, very important. But I think the work life balance question that comes, you can do everything that you want, but your organization needs to support it. Your manager needs to support it. If managers don't support it, if the organization doesn't support it, then it becomes challenging. And I think part of the ownership is on you as well. In my case, as soon as I know that here is something important, I need to be there as a parent, I put all things on the calendar, and I share and give a heads up to folks saying, hey, next month on X this particular date, you will see a block on my calendar. I tell it to my team. You will see a block on my calendar because it's time for me to do a certain thing, attend a particular thing with my son or with my daughter. And that helps. If as long as you're getting the work done and you're giving a heads up and you have the support, I think that's what gives the work-life balance. There is no one magic formula for work-life balance, but part of the ownership is on you, and part of the ownership is on making sure you get the support that you needed and they support you.
Right. Sounds like having a supportive team, supportive environment, but also being able to communicate and set those boundaries. And I heard from you earlier around like communicating with your partner, also communicating with work, just all across being very transparent on your needs.
Yeah. And I think there needs to be a balance even at home, because that can also cause a lot of stuff. I think we have shared a calendar, my wife and I, and if she has something, she will put on the calendar saying, hey, I'm going for this yoga class at this time. And I know exactly, oh yeah, she's going to be at the yoga class. So if I'm kind of, have something else going on, how do I balance it? And the same thing with her. If I have something going on, she knows exactly what the plan for the day is, so we can then plan things around if there is a drop off or there is some other kids related activity that we need.
It's awesome. So I think you kind of talked about this in terms of like meditating, taking walks, but I was just wondering if there's anything else that helps you relax or unwind.
I think the meditating and walking definitely helps. I think the socializing, and socializing could be, meeting friends, or I go for a walk. I see my neighbors, and we have a very friendly neighborhood. I talk to them, talk about, anything on top of mind. That helps quite a bit, because then you feel like you have a bigger, family or neighbors and other. I like to travel outside of this. Every year we take a couple of good trips, a road trip and something out of town, out of country type of a trip as a family, and that is very helpful. That is very, very helpful. In the earlier days of my career, we did not take as many of the trips because we were like focused on the career. Then the kids were born. We couldn't take. We weren't that adventurous set of parents that are going to take a 3 month old or a 6 month old on a hike or something. So now is our time to kind of go on trips, bond with them, and so forth. So I mean, I sometimes feel if you are not taking some sort of a trip away from home every 6 months, then it just adds to the monotonous nature of everything.
And then it's also just spending time somewhere else with your family, having that bonding experience.
Yeah.
Especially since they're still willing to go. When they get older, who knows? They want to go with their friends. And, so right now
Yeah.
you can still
Yeah.
get them to go. That's lovely.
Yeah, I think these trips help build a bond for the long term set of things, because they will have memories. Oh, you know what? We went on a trip like this, and then can we do it again? And even though they become older and the next phase of your life, those trips may not happen every 6 months, may happen every year, may happen every other year, but at least they will happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know I have fond memories of trips we went on when we were young. And so I want to recreate some of those for my kids as well. And I'm sure your
Yeah.
kids will want to do that for their kids and things like that. So the last question I'd like to ask is what's something you would tell someone who's planning to have kids or something you wish you knew before you became a parent?
I think I'll say a couple of things. One, parenting is a lot about patience. It's a lot about patience. You need to be really patient. I mean, you cannot, it will test your patience to a level that you have never been tested. I think the second thing is, find your support system. What is your support system? And it could be people who are supporting you. It could be activities that you are doing as a parent. Sometimes we get too caught into doing parenting that you lose out on your own set of activities. So carve out that time. If I was to go back in time and do it all over again, I would say I wish I would have carved out a little bit time for myself. Like, hey, I'm a full-time parent, right? Every day. And when I say full-time parent, because we are parents, it's not that we are sitting at home and parenting, but we are parents, right? But we carving out time, it could mean, hey, every week for a couple of hours or 5 hours, I'm going to do something. As a couple, we're going to do something. And I think there is that guilty feeling that we have, is like, oh, we need to be there for the kids. True, but the kids also have parent fatigue, and parents have kid fatigue. That happens, right? You just need to kind of refresh yourself and come back, so that you're giving them the quality time. I think those are the two things I would say are super, super, super important. And the third thing I would say is a lot of parents get into a comparison thing between the kids or with other kids. And we had this one rule, which we my wife and I had this rule, like, let's not compare our kids with other kids, because our kid is different, their kids are different, their situations are different, and let's not do things because others are doing things. So we had a rule in our home: if our child says, hey, that other kid has it, so I want it, so we're not going to get it. It could be a video game. They could come and say, oh, my friend XYZ has that video game, so I want it. I was like, no, you want it because he or she has it. No, that's not how I. If you want it, if you need it, then you. So we had a rule: if you come up with that excuse to get something, then for next 48 hours you're not going to ask for it. You come up with a reason why you want it, because you want to play that particular game, or that you want that particular set of thing, because then it becomes a comparison thing, and you kind of bringing a bit of a competitiveness between the kids. I don't want it, but since that person has it, I want it. It worked till this point. Now it doesn't work. But as a child, it worked.
I'm glad it worked for so long.
Hopefully it kind of comes back to them at some point.
And I think it probably set a foundation for them as well. I love that you and your wife are like, we're not going to compare, because it's so important. I know growing up, a lot of parents compared, oh, so and so's kid going to this school, so and so's kid works here. So it does not matter.
It never ends.
Exactly, exactly. So I love that.
Never ends. It adds to the stress, it adds to the anxiety. It also affects relationships between you and your child, and you and your spouse sometimes, because you may have different opinions.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you said that. I'm going to make a little note of that to remind myself, if I catch myself doing that, don't do that. Or if the kids do that, it's
Yeah.
not healthy. Well, thank you, Rahul. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing your story. It was so great hearing from you and talking to you and seeing you. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. And hopefully, some things somebody will like, and will open for feedback if I can be a better parent at this next phase of my life.
Awesome. Yeah, there was a lot of really, really cool nuggets in there. And I know I took a lot of notes. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope
No
you have a
worries.
great weekend.
You too.
Thank
Enjoy.
you. Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Parenthood Bites. We hope you found our episode informative and entertaining. If you're a parent in the tech world or know someone who is, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at chow@parenthoodbites.co, and we'll be thrilled to add your experiences to our interviews. That's chow, CHIAO, at parenthoodbites.co. And to our potential sponsors out there, if you're a business or know of one that would like to support and partner with our podcast, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also reach us at chow@parenthoodbites.co. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Until next time, take care and stay curious.